When a man hurts a good woman, the first thing that follows is distance. And that distance is not something that happens overnight, but builds up slowly with every moment she feels unseen, unheard, or undervalued. At first, she may still try to reach out, to explain, to bridge the gap that has been created, because that is the nature of a good woman. She gives, she forgives, she hopes for better. But when she notices that her voice falls on deaf ears or her efforts are met with indifference, she starts to question why she is pouring herself into someone who doesn't seem to pour back into her. This is where the quiet shift begins, where the woman who once leaned in starts to lean away, where the woman who once stretched herself to close the gap begins to recognize that the gap exists because she is the only one walking across it. That distance shows up in small, subtle ways before it becomes obvious. She might take longer to reply to messages, not because she's playing games, but because she no longer feels the urgency she once felt to stay connected. She may stop sharing every little detail about her day, because those details feel wasted when they aren't valued. The energy she once reserved for him begins to find new places to go, whether it's in her work, her friendships, her family, or simply in herself. What he doesn't realize at first is that these small steps back are not temporary reactions, but the early signs of a deeper decision she is making within herself. A decision to prioritize her peace over his presence. The hurt she feels becomes the catalyst for her clarity, and clarity often creates separation. A good woman is not quick to walk away, but when she does, it's not out of spite. It's out of preservation. She starts to notice the difference between being wanted and being truly valued, and the weight of that realization is heavy. The love she gave so freely starts to feel misplaced, and that distance she creates is her way of reclaiming the pieces of herself she handed over too easily. This isn't about punishing him. This is about protecting her, and the more she protects her own peace, the more she sees the relationship for what it truly is rather than what she hoped it could be. That distance doesn't always look like leaving. Sometimes it's staying but no longer being fully there. Her laughter won't come as easily, her affection won't flow as naturally, and her willingness to go the extra mile will start to fade. She becomes present in body but absent in spirit, and that absence is louder than any fight they could ever have. Because when a good woman stops showing up with her whole heart, it's a sign that she's already halfway out the door. That distance is not something she flaunts or uses as a weapon. It's simply the natural response to being consistently wounded by someone she trusted to protect her heart. And yet, what makes this distance so profound is that it isn't dramatic. It's quiet. There is no grand declaration, no storm of anger, no dramatic exit, just a slow, steady withdrawal, almost like the tide pulling back from the shore. One day, he will look around and realize the warmth she used to bring into every room has gone cold. The comfort she used to provide has been replaced with indifference, and the closeness he once took for granted is now just a memory. By the time he notices, the distance is no longer something she is creating. It's something that simply exists because she has chosen herself over him. This distance teaches a powerful truth about love and respect. It shows that even the most patient, giving, and forgiving woman has a limit, a breaking point where her heart no longer allows her to keep investing in someone who consistently causes her pain. It is not that she stops caring entirely, but that she learns caring for herself is more important than chasing after someone who doesn't see her worth. And while he may believe she will always be there, her distance proves that even the strongest loyalty can fade when it is not cherished. In the end, when a man hurts a good woman and she chooses distance, he may confuse it for coldness or indifference, but it is actually strength in its purest form. It is her choosing peace over chaos, dignity over desperation, and self-respect over one-sided love. The distance is not punishment, it is a boundary. It is her way of saying without words that she deserves better, and the moment she believes that fully, the relationship is already altered in a way that can never be undone. When a man hurts a good woman, the second thing that follows is silence, and this silence carries more weight than any argument or outburst could ever hold. In the beginning, she may have tried to speak up, to explain how his actions or words cut deep, to give him a chance to understand the damage he caused. But over time, she realizes that repeating herself only drains her energy and never changes the outcome. Silence becomes her shield, not because she doesn't have anything left to say, but because she finally understands that not every word deserves to be spoken when the person on the other end refuses to listen. It's in that quiet where she regains her strength, where she begins to piece herself back together without relying on him to notice or care. This silence is different from avoidance. It's not the silence of ignoring or playing games. It's the silence that speaks louder than any words could. It's the kind of silence that makes a man feel the absence of her laughter, her warmth, her affection. When she chooses not to argue anymore, when she stops trying to explain the same hurt for the 10th time, that's when he feels the shift most deeply. Arguments mean she still cares enough to fight for the relationship, but silence means she has let go of that fight. What follows that silence is not anger, but clarity, and clarity is what eventually changes the entire dynamic. The silence of a good woman isn't passive, it's purposeful. She uses that quiet to think, to reflect, to remind herself of who she is outside of the pain. She begins to hear her own voice again, the one that got lost in the noise of defending herself and trying to prove her worth. That silence becomes the space where she reclaims her identity, where she no longer lets the relationship define her sense of self. And in doing so, she takes back the power she unknowingly handed over when she kept trying to explain herself to someone who didn't see her. What men often misunderstand is that a woman's silence doesn't mean she has nothing left inside her. It means she has stopped wasting it on someone who doesn't appreciate it. Her quiet becomes the consequence of his disregard. It's a silence that stings because it's not the silence of indifference, but the silence of resolution. It communicates more than anger ever could, because anger means there is still fire, but silence means the fire is gone, and with it, the urgency to keep proving her love. In that silence, she begins to redirect her energy inward. Instead of pouring her heart into arguments that go nowhere, she pours her heart into healing, into building herself back up, into finding joy outside of the relationship. She learns that silence doesn't mean weakness, it means strength, because it takes more control to hold back words than to unleash them. Her silence is the doorway to her freedom, and once she steps through it, she sees the situation for what it really is rather than what she wished it could be. This silence changes the balance of the relationship. Suddenly, the man who once dismissed her words notices their absence. The comfort of knowing she would always argue, always fight for them, always come back, begins to disappear. The quiet becomes unsettling, almost haunting, because it forces him to sit with the reality he created. Silence leaves space, and in that space, the truth becomes undeniable. He realizes that he is no longer the center of her focus, and that realization often comes too late. What follows silence is not emptiness, but transformation. For the woman, it is the moment she learns that her peace is more valuable than proving her point. For the man, it is the realization that the silence he took as a pause is actually the beginning of an ending. It's the turning point where she stops speaking and starts choosing herself, and from that moment forward, nothing is ever the same. When a man hurts a good woman, the third thing that follows is change. And this change is not the loud, dramatic kind that everyone sees immediately, but the quiet, gradual kind that slowly transforms everything. At first, she may still try to show up in the same way, still attempt to hold on to the familiar rhythm of the relationship, but inside something begins to shift. She starts to pull back the little gestures that once came so naturally, the way she used to send thoughtful texts, the way she used to go out of her way to make sure he felt loved, the way she would rearrange her own needs just to make space for his. That steady flow of energy begins to slow down, not because she doesn't have it in her, but because she realizes she can't keep pouring into someone who continues to leave her empty. The hurt he caused plants a seed of transformation, and even if he doesn't notice right away, it is already growing. This change shows up in the tone of her voice, in the way she listens but no longer leans in the way she spends her time differently. She no longer makes him the center of her universe because she has realized that he cannot be trusted to handle that responsibility with care. She starts redirecting her focus toward herself, her goals, her friends, her passions, all the things she may have once put on hold while investing in him. The man who hurt her may not notice it immediately because the shift isn't loud, but when he looks closer, he sees that her attention has scattered elsewhere and the spotlight he once stood under has dimmed. What he once took for granted now becomes noticeably absent, and the absence of her consistent love creates a void that nothing else fills. Change in a good woman is powerful because it's not rooted in revenge, it's rooted in survival. She understands that continuing to show up the same way in the face of hurt will only deplete her, so she adapts. That adaptability is what makes her strong, and it is what makes her transformation impossible to reverse. She doesn't try to make him jealous or prove a point. She simply learns to put herself first. She may still love him, but she loves herself enough to stop ignoring the way he made her feel. That kind of change is lasting because it's born from pain, and pain has a way of creating clarity that comfort never could. The man may think she is simply going through a phase, that with time she will return to her old ways, but what he doesn't understand is that once a good woman changes, she never goes back to being who she was before. The innocence, the blind trust, the unquestioning loyalty, those are things she cannot offer again after being hurt. Instead, she grows wiser, stronger, more guarded. The effort she once gave so freely is now carefully measured, and that new version of her is not someone who will continue to tolerate what she once did. The change becomes a boundary, a shield, a new foundation she stands on that no amount of apology can easily shake. For her, change means choosing to protect her heart differently. Where she once answered every call immediately, she now takes her time. Where she once forgave instantly, she now pauses and considers whether forgiveness is deserved. Where she once gave endless chances, she now recognizes the cost of giving too many. Her love becomes more selective, not because she wants to withhold it, but because she has learned the value of guarding it. Change makes her less available to the person who hurt her and more available to herself, and that is where her true growth begins. This transformation often catches the man by surprise. He may believe that her consistency is something permanent, something guaranteed, but when he sees the changes in her behavior, he begins to realize that good women do not stay the same after being hurt. They evolve. And that evolution is rarely in favor of the person who caused their pain. He will notice that her smile no longer lights up the way it used to when he walks into the room, that her touch no longer lingers with the same tenderness, that her effort no longer stretches itself to cover his shortcomings. Those subtle changes combine into one undeniable truth. She is not the same woman he once knew. And while that change may be painful for him to witness, for her it is liberation. It is the moment she breaks free from the cycle of giving without receiving, the moment she steps into a stronger version of herself, the moment she understands that pain can either destroy you or build you, and she chooses to let it build her. That change is not temporary. It is the beginning of a new chapter, one where she no longer sacrifices her identity for the sake of love, and one where the man who hurt her can never again expect the version of her he once knew. When a man hurts a good woman, the fourth thing that follows is clarity, and clarity is one of the most powerful shifts she will ever experience. At first, she may live in confusion, questioning herself, doubting her worth, wondering if she somehow deserved the pain that was given to her. She might spend nights replaying conversations, trying to understand how someone she gave her heart to could treat her with such carelessness. But the beauty of clarity is that it does not arrive all at once. It unfolds slowly, piece by piece, until she finally sees the full picture. She starts to realize that the love she was offering was not the problem. The problem was that it was being offered to someone who did not know how to hold it. That realization clears away the fog of excuses she used to tell herself, and in its place grows the truth. She is worthy, and she always was. Clarity makes her see him differently. The man she once placed on a pedestal becomes human, flawed, and exposed for who he truly is rather than who she hoped he could be. The little red flags she used to ignore now stand out boldly, and the patterns of his behavior become impossible to deny. She notices how often he dismissed her feelings, how frequently he failed to match her effort, how carelessly he handled her trust. Where love once blinded her, clarity now sharpens her vision, and that sharpness creates a strength within her that she didn't have before. It's not that she stops loving overnight, it's that she begins to understand the cost of loving someone who does not value her in return, and that cost becomes too heavy to carry any longer. Clarity also makes her see herself differently. She recognizes how much she gave, how deeply she cared, how hard she tried to hold everything together even when it was falling apart. Instead of blaming herself, she begins to admire herself for the loyalty and patience she showed, because those qualities are not weaknesses, but strengths. She understands now that she wasn't too much, she was simply too much for the wrong person. That shift in perspective rebuilds her confidence because she no longer views herself through the lens of his treatment, but through the truth of her own worth. She sees that the pain she endured does not define her, but the way she rises from it does. With clarity comes a shift in priorities. She no longer feels the need to beg for his attention or chase after his approval, because she realizes those things should have been given freely if he truly cared. The energy she once poured into convincing him of her value, she now pours into herself, into healing, into growth. Her focus shifts from trying to fix him to protecting herself, and that change in direction becomes a turning point. She begins to invest her time and heart where it is reciprocated, and that decision reshapes the way she moves forward in every relationship to come. For the man, her clarity often feels like a wall suddenly going up, but the truth is that the wall was always being built while he wasn't paying attention. The distance, the silence, the change, all of those steps lead her to this place of understanding. He may be surprised when she finally pulls away, but in reality, she has been pulling away in her heart long before she ever shows it outwardly. Clarity doesn't mean she hates him. It simply means she sees him clearly for the first time without the lens of blind love, and once she sees clearly, she cannot unsee. Clarity teaches her that love is not enough without respect, effort, and consistency. She understands now that a relationship cannot thrive on one person's sacrifices alone, that her role is not to fix or carry someone who refuses to meet her halfway. This understanding allows her to release the guilt, the self-blame, and the fear that held her back, because she knows now that choosing herself is not selfish, it is necessary, and in that choice, she reclaims her freedom. The gift of clarity is that it transforms her pain into wisdom. She learns to recognize the difference between being wanted and being truly valued, between being tolerated and being cherished. That wisdom becomes her protection going forward, shaping her standards, her expectations, and her boundaries. It is through clarity that she discovers her greatest strength, because she is no longer defined by what someone did to her, but by the truth she carries with her now. Clarity is the moment she steps fully into her own power, and nothing will ever look the same again once she has found it. When a man hurts a good woman, the fifth thing that follows is strength. And this strength is not the kind that comes from avoiding pain, but the kind that is born directly out of it. At first, the hurt feels heavy, almost unbearable, like it might crush the very parts of her that once made her so full of life and love. She feels the weight of betrayal, the sting of disappointment, and the emptiness of being let down by someone she trusted. But slowly, as the days pass and the silence settles, something inside her begins to rise. She realizes that although she was hurt deeply, she is still standing, still breathing, still capable of love, and that survival alone plants the first seed of her strength. She begins to understand that pain can break you for a moment, but it can also become the foundation for a stronger version of yourself than you ever imagined. Her strength shows in the way she learns to depend on herself again. The reliance she once placed on him for comfort, validation, or reassurance is now redirected back into her own hands. She begins to rebuild her confidence piece by piece, reminding herself of everything she brings to the table, everything she once forgot because she was so busy trying to prove her worth to someone who didn't see it. She starts doing things for herself that make her feel alive again, whether that's pursuing her passions, strengthening her relationships with people who truly care, or simply learning to enjoy her own company. The strength she gains is quiet but steady, and every step she takes forward is proof that the hurt she endured did not destroy her but shaped her into someone stronger. This strength doesn't erase the pain she felt, but it transforms it into wisdom. She no longer sees herself as a victim of his actions, but as a survivor who found the courage to rise again. She learns to recognize the signs of unhealthy love, to trust her instincts when something feels off, and to never ignore her own needs in the name of keeping someone else comfortable. This kind of wisdom allows her to build boundaries she never had before, boundaries that protect her peace and ensure she will never again allow anyone to diminish her value. That wisdom becomes her armor, and with it she carries herself differently, speaks differently, and loves differently. She no longer loves from a place of desperation, but from a place of knowing that she deserves to be loved fully in return. Strength also shows up in the way she forgives herself. She forgives herself for staying too long, for ignoring the signs, for giving chance after chance, because she realizes that her choices came from a place of love, not weakness. And that forgiveness frees her from the shame that often follows heartbreak. She understands that even though she was hurt, she was also brave enough to love with her whole heart, and that is something to be proud of, not ashamed of. The strength she gains is not just about standing up to him, but about standing up for herself, for her future, and for the kind of love she knows she truly deserves. For the man who hurt her, her strength may be the most surprising thing he witnesses. He may have thought she would always stay, always bend, always forgive no matter what. But when she rises stronger, when she no longer accepts the bare minimum, when she refuses to be treated the same way again, he begins to see the power of the woman he underestimated. Her strength is not loud. It doesn't come with shouting or anger. It comes with composure, with self-respect, with the quiet confidence of someone who knows she deserves better. And often, by the time he realizes it, she has already outgrown him completely. This kind of strength is life-changing because it shifts her focus from what she lost to what she has gained. She realizes that being hurt didn't break her, it built her, and that realization becomes the foundation for everything she does moving forward. She approaches life with a new kind of courage, one that is not afraid of being alone, one that is not afraid of starting over, one that knows her worth cannot be defined by someone else's inability to value it. That is the kind of strength that no one can take away from her because it was earned through fire and forged in pain. The strength that follows hurt is not just about surviving, it is about thriving. It is the strength to walk away when love no longer serves her, the strength to speak up when something doesn't feel right, the strength to choose herself even when it's difficult. It's the strength to look back at what she went through and realize that it shaped her, refined her, and prepared her for a future where she will never again settle for less than she deserves. It's a strength that redefines her story, not as someone who was broken, but as someone who was tested and came out unshaken.